Most people focus on the moment everything collapses. The asteroid impact, the volcanic eruption, the sudden climate shift, the moment when the world changes. But the real story of extinction doesn't begin in that moment. It begins the day after. The morning when the dust is still in the air, when the forests are quiet, when the food chains that supported entire ecosystems begin to unravel. For millions of years, dinosaurs ruled Earth. They thrived in forests, plains, river valleys, and coastal wetlands. Their habitats were stable, complex, and incredibly productive. But when those habitats collapsed, the most important story wasn't the destruction itself. It was what happened next. Because extinction isn't always instant. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, in the quiet days, months, and years after the world changes. Today on Meet the Dinosaurs, we're exploring something rarely discussed in dinosaur documentaries. What happens the day after a habitat collapses? Let's start with the moment everyone remembers. Roughly 66 million years ago, Earth experienced one of the most catastrophic environmental events in its history. A massive asteroid, about 10 kilometers wide, struck the planet near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. This impact created the Chicxulub crater, one of the largest known impact structures on Earth. The collision released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. Within minutes, massive shock waves traveled across continents. Earthquakes shook the planet. Tsunamis surged through coastal regions. Debris blasted into the upper atmosphere. Molten rock rained back down across the globe. Wildfires ignited across vast forests. The sky filled with ash, soot, and dust. At the time, the destruction was immediate and terrifying. But in the moment, many ecosystems were still technically alive. Animals survived the first hours. Rivers still flowed. Plants still stood, and for a brief period, life continued. At the time, no creature on Earth could possibly understand what had just begun. The day after a habitat collapses, something surprising happens. At first, things still appear normal. Some dinosaurs survived the immediate disaster. Large animals wandered through smoke-filled forests. Rivers still held fish. Insects still moved through the charred remains of vegetation. But something had already changed. The skies remained dark. Dust and aerosols filled the upper atmosphere, blocking sunlight. Temperatures began to drop. Photosynthesis, the process plants use to convert sunlight into energy, began to fail. Without sunlight, plant growth slowed dramatically. Without plants, the foundation of the entire ecosystem began to weaken. But this wasn't obvious yet. From the perspective of a dinosaur walking through a damaged forest, the world still looked familiar. The real collapse was only beginning. This is where the invisible shifts begin. Ecosystems are built like pyramids. At the bottom are plants, above them are herbivores, and above them are predators. When plant life begins to collapse, everything above it eventually follows. Within weeks and months after the asteroid impact, sunlight remained blocked by atmospheric dust, global temperatures dropped, plant growth slowed dramatically. This created what scientists sometimes call an impact winter. Forests stopped regenerating. Grasslands withered. Ferns and hardy plants temporarily dominated damaged landscapes. Large herbivorous dinosaurs suddenly faced a devastating problem. Food was disappearing. Creatures like Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and Chicxulub depended on vast amounts of plant material every day. As vegetation vanished, these massive animals began to starve. And when herbivores struggle, predators follow. The consequences didn't arrive overnight. They arrived slowly. Weeks turned into months. Entire food chains began collapsing. Large predators like Tyrannosaurus rex, Dakotaraptor, relied on herbivores to survive. But as prey populations declined, predators lost their primary food sources. Meanwhile, climate instability created new stresses: temperature fluctuations, acid rain from atmospheric chemicals, collapsing freshwater ecosystems. Smaller animals with flexible diets had an advantage. Creatures that could eat seeds, insects, or carrion survived longer. But large dinosaurs, which required massive, stable ecosystems, faced an impossible challenge. Over time, entire dinosaur populations disappeared. What looked like a sudden extinction event was actually a slow ecological collapse. Nothing broke overnight, but everything eventually failed. Extinction doesn't always look dramatic. In fact, it can be incredibly subtle. Early on, there were still animals, still rivers, still forests, but ecosystems depend on balance. When enough small systems fail, the larger system eventually collapses. In the case of the dinosaurs, warning signs likely appeared in stages: declining plant growth, reduced prey populations, increased competition for food, environmental instability. But nature doesn't announce these warnings. It simply continues moving forward, and once the tipping point is crossed, recovery becomes impossible. Today, paleontologists study extinction events by examining the signals left behind in the fossil record. Scientists look for clues such as sudden changes in sediment layers, chemical markers like iridium linked to asteroid impacts, shifts in plant fossils and pollen records, changes in animal diversity. These clues help scientists reconstruct the slow collapse of ecosystems after catastrophic events. One fascinating discovery is that not all life disappeared. Some animals survived the extinction event: early mammals, bird ancestors, reptiles, small adaptable creatures. These survivors didn't rely on massive ecosystems to survive. They adapted, and eventually, they inherited the Earth. The story of dinosaur extinction teaches us something powerful. Catastrophic events matter, but the real impact often unfolds afterward. The asteroid didn't instantly eliminate every dinosaur. Instead, it triggered a chain reaction, an ecological collapse that unfolded over time. The lesson isn't simply that disasters destroy ecosystems. It's that ecosystems are fragile, and once the foundation begins to crack, the rest eventually follows. Understanding this helps scientists study not only the past, but the future of life on Earth. Most extinctions don't happen in a single moment. They happen in the days, months, and years that follow a crisis. The dinosaurs didn't disappear instantly. They vanished during the long and difficult world that came after the catastrophe, the day after a habitat collapsed. And that's the story we rarely hear. If you enjoyed exploring the deeper story behind dinosaur extinction, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Meet the Dinosaurs, because next time, we'll explore another hidden moment in prehistoric history, the day after the asteroid impact. And trust me, that story is even more incredible.